Help me reach my goal and subscribe. And hit the bell icon.
Chapter 68:21. Charlie said calmly, "Don't be so polite. I have to go out of town in the next few days. You two should concentrate on training here. If you need anything, contact Orville. He will make arrangements for you." Charlie rested for a few days in Oris Hill, and then set off again for Guangqing in the south. It was just near the end of the lunar year, and the weather was getting colder and colder. The temperature in Guangqing was not so low, which was relatively friendly to the performance. According to the plan, the last stop was Rongqing. After the last performance in Rongqing, Charlie would return to Oris Hill immediately, and the next day, he would fly to the Maldives with his family, running around with Tawana for days. Charlie's spirit was a little tired, and he couldn't wait to have a good rest during the new year. It was not because he was physically tired, but mainly because he needed to relax and empty his mind. When he followed Tawana's performance in Guangqing, a cargo ship docked at Pudong Port in Shanghai. This was a Chinese cargo ship, which had just returned to the anchorage. All the crew members had just disembarked to rest, after the freighter loaded the next batch of cargo. The freighter would set sail for Europe. Among the crew members, there was a middle-aged and elderly chef. Everyone affectionately called him Chef Ma. But in fact, his real identity was Leon Tang, the butler of the Wade family for many years. All the members of this ship are under the command of Charlie's mother. Margaret controls a Chinese shipping company. Although it is not as big as ISU Shipping, it also has dozens of container ships, while providing Margaret with abundant cash profits. It can also help her to dispatch materials and personnel worldwide. Leon left the freighter and was escorted to Oris Hill by a special person through secret channels. Oris Hill is not far from Shanghai, and it only takes 3 or 4 hours to get there. Margaret arranged for Leon to stay in Shixia Temple, because the whole Oris Hill is full of Charlie's people and industries, and she dared not let Leon show any signs of being exposed. Leon took a business car with a completely opaque back seat from Shanghai to Shixia Temple. It was late at night when he arrived at the temple. Shixia Temple is closed at night and does not receive pilgrims. But at this time, the side door to the mountain was opened, and it was closed again after the business car entered the door. The business car drove directly to the middle of the mountain. This was also the independent courtyard where Margaret had stayed. Several monks quietly cleaned up the courtyard and guest rooms. After the business car drove into the courtyard, they immediately lowered their heads and evacuated. 2 men in black got off the driver and co-pilot seats. After checking and locking the door, they opened the rear sliding door and said respectfully to Leon in the car, "Butler Tang, we are here, you can get off." Leon nodded gently, and after getting out of the car, he saw an old woman walking out of the main room of the courtyard. It was Sister Sun, who usually accompanied Margaret. When Sister Sun saw Leon, she smiled and said, "Leon, you've been traveling all the way, it must have been hard." Leon smiled and said, "I've been enjoying the tropical island style in Tahiti all this time. It's not hard at all. But it's really hard for Sister Sun to accompany Madam all the time." Chapter 68:22. After that, Leon stood in place and looked up at the hazy moonlight in the sky, took a deep breath of the wet and cold air in the cold winter, and sighed. Sister Sun, to be honest, I'm still not used to the winter in the south. Which makes me think of the young master again. The first winter he spent in the welfare home, he often curled up in the quilt and shivered in the middle of the night, because he couldn't stand the damp and cold. But the welfare home was too old, so old that there was no heating or air conditioning. And even the windows were single-layer glass. I wanted to do something for the young master at the time. But I was afraid that doing too much would arouse his suspicion or attract attention. So I could only let him get frostbite. Now thinking back to that winter, I cried a lot for the young master in Yangjing. Sister Sun nodded and sighed. The director of the welfare home sent some photos. The young master's hands, feet, and ears were all frozen at that time. Madam often shed tears after seeing those photos. But now think about it, those hardships are actually indispensable training for the young master in life. Without those hardships, how could he grow into the upright Master Wade that he is today? Leon nodded slightly and sighed. Sister Sun is right. The young master has been struggling in the mud for so many years and has finally become a great talent. The mud pond of Aurus Hill has not been able to stop the young master from soaring to the sky. Sister Sun smiled and said, but a mud pond is still a mud pond after all. Madam thinks it's time for the young master to get rid of it completely. Leon asked her, the mud pond that Sister Sun is talking about should be the Wilson family, right? Yes. Sister Sun nodded heavily and said seriously. You have been the housekeeper of the Wade family for so many years. People who know the Wade family should have heard of your name. There is also a lot of information about you on the internet. If you meet Claire and tell her the young master's background truthfully, she will not have any doubts. Leon asked if Claire knows this. Would Madam hope that she would divorce the young master? That's right. Sister Sun said, Madam inferred that with Claire's personality. If she knew that the young master had been hiding things from her for so many years, and had been hiding so many things that had happened in the past few years from her, she would definitely leave him. At this point, she hesitated and continued. But what Madam is not sure about is whether the young master will be willing to let her leave at that time. So you have to find a chance to have a good talk with Claire, and let her understand that if she stays with the young master, it will not only add burden to the young master, but will also bring unnecessary danger to her and her family. It would be best if she were willing to leave. Leon said worriedly, the young master cares about her very much. If I can persuade her to leave the young master, it will not be difficult to find her with the young master's ability. After all, the young master now has a complete set of AI models, and has laid ground nets at airports and terminals all over the world. Sister Sun smiled and said, if she is willing to leave the young master, Madam will arrange for her and her family to quietly leave China. She will never let the young master find her when the time comes. When the lady can meet the young master, she will naturally explain all this to him. At that time, if the young master still wants to find Claire, the lady will not stop him. Then she said, by the way, by that time, you can also return to China. If the young master needs you, then you can return to the young master and serve him. If the young master doesn't need you anymore, you can retire and enjoy a peaceful life. Leon nodded gently and sighed, I have to break up young master's marriage. I don't know if the young master will feel resentful in the future. Sister Sun sighed and said helplessly, even if the young master blames Madam, Madam can only do this, otherwise, he will never be able to cut off his worries. The girl from the Wilson family and the people in Oris Hill will become his shackles. Then, Sister Sun asked him, "Do you think the young master will blame Madam if he knows that she has been strategizing behind the scenes for so many years?" "That shouldn't be the case," Leon said. "After all, Madam has had a very hard life over the years." "That's it." Sister Sun smiled and said, "Madam and young master are both working towards the same goal. Only when this goal is achieved sooner can they, mother and son, be reunited." Chapter 68:23. Sister Sun's words made Leon no longer worried. So he asked her, "In your opinion, how should I contact Miss Wilson and tell her about these things?" Sister Sun said, "Jingqing will come to Chixia Temple the day after tomorrow morning. Madam's idea is to find a way to get Miss Wilson to the temple. And then let Jingqing create an opportunity for you to have a safe conversation." Jingqing. Leon smiled slightly and asked, "Jingqing is now a famous master, right?" "Yes." Sister Sun nodded and sighed. "Jingqing has wisdom. He has wisdom in practicing Taoism and studying Buddhism. With Madam's guidance, he has made rapid progress. Although he has become a monk, he still follows Madam's lead." Leon asked again, "Then how can we get Miss Wilson to come to Chixia Temple?" Sister Sun smiled and said, "Miss Wilson has a design company, you should know it." "Of course." Leon nodded and said, "It was the young master who encouraged her to start her own design studio. When the company opened, many prominent figures in the city went to present opening gifts." "Yes." Sister Sun said, "There is a girl in her company who was arranged by us. She is capable at work and is already trusted by Miss Wilson. She will take the time to mention it to her tomorrow morning. I believe she should be able to get her to come to Chixia Temple." Leon was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a long time. He didn't expect that although the lady never showed up in public, she had spies everywhere. After a long time, he asked, "Sister Sun, I dare to ask a question that I shouldn't ask. Besides me, is there anyone else arranged by the madam around the young master?" Sister Sun looked at him and smiled. "You know you shouldn't ask, but you still asked." After that, she still replied, "Madam doesn't want to affect the young master's growth trajectory. There is no one else except you. In fact, Madam has always regretted this. If she had interfered with the affairs of the Wilson family a little, perhaps the young master would not have married Miss Wilson." Leon couldn't help but sigh. It seems that Madam does have some complaints about Miss Wilson. Sister Sun smiled and said, "How should I put it? There are definitely some complaints. But they are mainly directed at Miss Wilson's parents, not Miss Wilson herself. When the young master and the Wilson family didn't move out of the old community, Madam knew exactly what the young master lived every day. At that time, the people living downstairs were arranged by Madam. Elaine and Jacob bossed the young master around, ridiculed and abused him all day long. How could Madam not feel distressed?" "That's true." Leon smiled and said, "Sometimes, I wanted to teach Elaine a lesson." Sister Sun nodded and said with a smile, "But Elaine suffered a lot later. Which can be regarded as a lesson. This family, whether right or wrong, is too distracting for the young master. If they can leave, the young master can let go. This matter is up to you." Leon clasped his fists with a serious expression and said, "Don't worry, Sister Sun, I will do my best." The next morning, Claire rushed to the company early in the morning as usual. Charlie was not at home, and Elaine also lost the motivation to make breakfast. Claire brought some breakfast from downstairs of the company and planned to deal with it in the office. She thought she would definitely be the first to arrive. But she didn't expect that her capable assistant, Magdalena Sun, had arrived in advance at the company. Seeing Magdalena, Claire smiled and said, "Magdalena, why are you here so early today?" Magdalena smiled and said, "Good morning, President Wilson. I got up early today and went to Cheshire Temple to ask a master for a health talisman for my family. I didn't expect to get anything. I am so depressed." Chapter 68:24. Claire asked curiously, "How come we came back empty-handed? Isn't Cheshire Temple open today?" "It's open." Magdalena shrugged and said, "It's just that I mistook Master Jingqing's arrival for wrong. He is coming to Cheshire Temple tomorrow. But I remembered it wrong. I went there early this morning." "Master Jingqing?" Claire frowned and murmured, "I seem to have heard of this name somewhere." Magdalena smiled and said, "Master Jingqing is very famous. He is one of the youngest eminent monks in the country. His understanding of Buddhism far exceeds that of ordinary monks. In the past 1 or 2 years, he has traveled to major temples across the country, preached to believers, and blessed Dharma objects for them. It is said that the health amulets and peace amulets he blessed are the most effective." "Is that true?" Claire asked in surprise. "Of course it's true." Magdalena said, "Ms. Wilson, why don't we go to Cheshire Temple together tomorrow morning, at 7 o'clock? So we can come back without being late for work. We can buy some amulets for your husband and your parents." Claire smiled and said, "My husband seems to know a lot about Feng Shui. He can make amulets himself and gave me one a long time ago." "That's different," Magdalena said very seriously. "Feng Shui should be the I Ching and Bagua, which is closer to Chinese Taoism. Master Jingqing is a Buddhist master, and his amulets are from Buddhism. Just like Android phones and Apple phones, with different underlying architectures." Claire was amused by her logic and metaphor, and said happily, "Magdalena, you are really talented. You can come up with this metaphor, but have you ever thought about it? Whether it's Android or Apple, isn't it enough to have one?" Magdalena said seriously, "Mr. Wilson, you know Indians, they believe in tens of millions of different gods. But the key is that they can worship gods when they see them. Why? Isn't it just for an extra layer of protection? Usually, when I encounter difficulties, I ask for the blessing of the gods. And I always ask from the gods of the East and the West. What if one of the gods is not at home? And one of the gods just passes by? Then I have a better chance." As she said, she raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Mr. Wilson, let me demonstrate it to you." After that, she closed her eyes, put her hands together, and said piously, "God, Jesus, Buddha, Bodhisattva, Yuan Shi Qianzuan, Jade Emperor, Queen Mother, your little daughter Magdalena. I ask all the gods to bless me to get rich and live 100 years long. Amitabha, Amen Amen, hurry up and pay heed to my request." Claire was amused by her serious look and said, "This is the first time I see you worshipping gods like this. Great, isn't it? Magdalena said with a smile. These are all my unique tricks. How about it, Mr. Wilson, do you want to go together tomorrow? Worship more gods, have an extra layer of protection. And it doesn't cost money. Just buy a ticket to Cheshire Temple. You won't suffer a loss or be cheated. Claire saw Magdalena's quirky energy and liked and appreciated her character very much. The company has grown and developed over the past year. And there are dozens of employees. But most of them are actually old hands in the workplace, deep in the city, and scheming. Magdalena is different. She has a serious attitude towards work. Never complains about being tired, and is smart and studious. Which makes Claire plan to focus on training her. And Magdalena's words really moved her. Anyway, getting up a little earlier. Whether it is useful or not, she will not harm herself and her family. So she smiled and said, "Okay, I'll believe you this time. Let's meet at the gate of Cheshire Temple at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning." Magdalena said happily, "Great. Then we have a deal, Ms. Wilson." Chapter 68:25. Claire did not tell Charlie or her parents about her plan to go to Cheshire Temple. She felt that such things as praying for the family could be done quietly. And there was no need to publicize it. The next morning, before Elaine and Jacob got up, she drove out to Cheshire Temple. The weather in the 12th lunar month is cold. The days are short and the nights long. When she went out, the sky was just getting brighter. At this time, some devout pilgrims were already waiting at the door of Cheshire Temple. As the end of the year approaches, people come to Cheshire Temple every day to grab the first incense stick. But they don't know that today the famous Master Jing Qing has returned to Cheshire Temple again. Master Jing Qing is in the back room of the Wuliang Hall at the moment. The room is cold. So he sits cross-legged on the couch, silently chanting scriptures while circulating the spiritual energy in his body. This makes him feel warm as spring even though he is only wearing a thin monk robe. Today, the Wuliang Hall was closed. The monks of Cheshire Temple set up barriers to block the road from the courtyard in front of the Wuliang Hall, and hung a sign saying that the hall was closed today. Afterwards, all the monks retreated to the outside of the courtyard and guarded silently. Leon and Sister Sun walked along the bluestone road covered with morning dew to the outside of the courtyard of the hall, and said to several monks, "Before the two female donors come in later, remember to remove these signs first and put them out after they go in." "Okay, donors." The monks nodded respectfully, clasped their hands together and bowed slightly. They were all the closest disciples of Master Jing Qing. Although they didn't know Sister Sun's identity, they knew that their master always respected her very much. So they were also very respectful to Sister Sun. Sister Sun and Leon walked into the Wuliang Hall together. Master Jing Qing noticed the two, and came out to greet them early. "Jing Qing." Sister Sun smiled and greeted him when she saw him come out. Jing Qing also smiled back, clasping his hands together. "Hello, Sister Sun, hello, Mr. Tang." Leon quickly clasped his hands together and bowed slightly, saying, "Hello, Master Jing Qing." Jing Qing smiled and said, "Mr. Tang, you don't have to call me master. In front of you, I am a junior." Although Jing Qing has a strong affinity with Buddhism and a high level of understanding, he is extremely grateful to Margaret. He feels that he followed Margaret relatively late, so he is naturally a junior in front of Leon. Sister Sun also said to Leon, I have always treated Jing Qing as my own child. Leon, you don't have to be too polite. Leon nodded gently. Sister Sun then said to Jing Qing, Jing Qing, Miss Wilson has already gone out to Chixia Temple. I asked Wilson to wait in the back hall. When the time is right, you can bring up the topic and tell Miss Wilson that someone wants to see her. But be careful not to scare her. Jing Qing nodded, still clasping his hands together, and smiled. Don't worry, Sister Sun, I'll be careful. Sister Sun was a little nervous and sighed. Oh, I haven't been so nervous for a long time. You too must pay attention to your attitude and wording. There are two possibilities. One is that Miss Wilson accepts our advice and leaves the young master quietly. The other is that she calls right after she leaves this door. If it's the former, our mission will be a complete success. If it's the latter, it will be a complete failure. The young master will definitely try every means to find us and find out the truth. After a pause, Sister Sun continued. And the three of us, firstly, cannot resist the young master's magical powers. Whatever we think and know in our hearts will probably be known by the young master. Secondly, we cannot reveal any information about the lady. So if we fail this time, we can only leave China and go to the hiding place arranged by the lady overseas. Before the lady meets the young master, we cannot set foot on Chinese soil again. Do you understand?